And Gillan takes it and left foots it down the field. And look at this, way back. And it bounces away from Chester Rogers inside the 10-yard line. And it's going to be touched down by the Browns at about the 9.5-yard line. He hit it from his own 2. It's a 74-yard punt.
That was the kick that allowed Cleveland Browns punter Jamie Gillans, aka the Scottish Hammer, to win the starting job over veteran punter Britton Colquitt. From there, Gillan would go on to have a monster rookie season, making him a cult favourite. But what I want to look into is the first month of Jamie Gillans' rookie campaign in 2019, which was one of the best debut months of any special teams player in the NFL. So this is Jamie Gillan. Nope, not quite. There we go. This is Jamie Gillans, the Scottish Hammer, a name given to him by his high school coach for the sound he makes when kicking a football, along with his Scottish heritage. Gillan was born and bred in Scotland, only moving to America at the age of 16, and Gillan had spent his whole life playing rugby. So moving to America at that age wasn't going to help his aspirations to become a professional athlete. So picking up football in high school, he was going to be in a big disadvantage. But Gillan had one ability that is not as prevalent in the USA, and this was kicking. As most people know in America, the ability to throw a ball is the primary skill that is highly revered. This is different in Europe, where the ability to kick the ball is the ultimate skill and something that kids do from an early age. There was no playing catch for a kid growing up in Europe. This was one of the advantages of Gillan's childhood in Scotland. The second was the position he played in rugby, fly half. A fly half in rugby will have a lot of the primary kicking duties. In a single game of rugby, the hammer could kick the ball 20 plus times a game, and because of this, Gillan was no stranger to punting the ball. This ability to kick the ball allowed Gillan to become his high school kicker and punter, and eventually get him a scholarship to Arkansas Pine Bluff, where Gillan put up very impressive numbers as the team's kicker, punter, and kickoff man, making him a 3-tool player. Looking at the stats in Jamie Gillans' final season, he put up very impressive numbers. In a season that had 71 punts, Gillan had 27 punts downed inside the 20-yard line, showing great placement, 27 fair catches showing great airtime, and 19 50-plus yard punts showing his power. Gillan also had an 80-yard punt in that season. He did all of this with 0 blocks and 5 tackles, going back to his rugby days. With numbers like these, Gillan was definitely going to get attention from NFL teams for training camp, and he did, choosing the Browns, even with the stiff competition there. This just showed how confident he was in his abilities. Jamie Gillan has such a powerful left leg that when he first started punting NFL balls, he kept bursting them on impact while practicing for his tryout with the Browns.
In the morning, go and practice, and I just bought these NFL balls, so they're like $100 a piece, and I went out 2 days later, I was kicking them and I could hear the air coming out of them, 3 out of the 4. I was like, oh man. So I treated the last one with a lot of care, so until the Browns sent me some footballs, which was awesome.
Did you try to return those balls that were losing air or whatever?
Yeah, I did. I tried to, because I called the Wilson, and stuff, and I was like, I just popped 3 of your balls, what do I do? And they were like, return it. And I tried to return it. I didn't get anything back from them, so I kind of just... Right.
The legend around Gillan was growing. With his cool nickname, long hair, and the ability to burst footballs on impact, Gillan was named the Browns Punter after an impressive pre-season. And now that we know the backstory of Gillan's journey to the NFL, let's look at the month of the Hammer. In Gillan's first game of his NFL career, he came out swinging. Starting out at the back of the end zone, Gillan smashed a 49-yard punt to the Titans' 49-yard line. This was a great start to Gillan's career. This was the perfect start for Gillan. It doesn't get much worse than being in the back of the end zone in a tortured franchise, where if your first punt went wrong, you could be an easy target, especially in the first week of the season. Just ask Roberto Aguayo, who lost his confidence early and could never get it back. After this punt, the Scottish hammer went off, smashing punt after punt for the rest of the game. Looking at the stats from the Titans game, Jamie Gillan dropped 2 of his first 3 punts inside the opponent's 20, with his final punt pinning the Titans back to their own 6-yard line. It was great to see the Browns' new punter leading the team to victory. Right. Okay, so the Browns didn't win. Jamie Gillan's brilliant punting performance didn't lead the Browns to victory. But well, he can't do it all. They say punters can win games for you. According to football analysts, there is only one position on the field that matters, only one position that can win you the game. I would tell you what that position is, but we don't talk about them on this channel, because they don't have the balls to play special teams. Except Taysom Hill. But in week 2, I believe it was a punter who won the game for the Browns. A punter from Scotland of all places. Gillan's first punt of the game was dropped into the Jets' 17-yard line. His second punt pinned the Jets into their own 10-yard line. His third punt was a fair catch, dropping at the Jets' 13-yard line. Basically, anytime the Browns failed to move the chains, Gillan was able to punt them out of danger, giving the Browns time to build up a lead and making it very difficult for the Jets to work their way back upfield. He just kept pinning them back, over and over. Following a 41-yarder to the Jets' 29-yard line, the hammer would go on to pin them deep back into their own end zone twice, with his 5th punt starting the Jets at the 12-yard line, and his 6th punt starting the Jets at their 11-yard line. I think that day Sam Darnold was seeing the ghost of William Wallace in Jamie Gillan form. The hammer was on fire. For that amazing performance, Gillan won Special Team Player of the Week and everything that goes with it. Chicks, fast cars, sponsorships. Wait. No. Just got a nice cup of tea and a biscuit. Also, the coach would go on to say that number 7 played well. This was a massive step up from training camp, where the coach referred to him as the guy who kicks the ball high. Versus the Rams, Jamie Gillan got off to a great start with a booming 55-yarder. This game was played in 14-mile-per-hour winds, and if you think wind is bad for a kicker, it's twice as bad for a punter because of how the wind can move the ball on the drop, and when you get the kickoff, it can mess with placement and distance. This was another great kick, showing great control from the 42-yard line, pinning the Rams back behind the 20 again. This ball went out of bounds at the 14, but looking at the conditions, the hammer did well to keep it under control. Both of these punts helped keep the Rams away from the end zone. On his third kick, it was a get-out-of-jail punt, with very little movement from the Browns offense, and pushed back to Cleveland's own 12-yard line. Gillan bailed them out with this kick. Thanks to that punt by Gillan, and a sack for -9 yards by Larry Ogunjobi, Greg Zuerlein came up for a 48-yard field goal, missing it wide right. In a game of such small margins, this is exactly how a power punter like Gillan can be so effective. With Baker still not moving the chains, and with obvious issues between the receivers and the quarterback, Jamie Gillan on the Rams' 41-yard line is asked to push them back far enough so the Browns can get to halftime. His 29-yard punt shows great placement and gives the Rams tough field position back at the 12-yard line. Goff fumbles on the drive back, and the Browns go up by 3 going into halftime. Gillan's 5th punt of the game was probably the worst punt of the month, a slightly shanked punt that went out of bounds at the 28. Luckily for Gillan, this wasn't terrible, as starting out at the 28 is still tough field position, but might have been the first time all month that he reminded you he was a rookie. Being at the Rams' 49, basically centre field, the hammer needed to focus less on distance and more on height and placement. With Cleveland back at the 2, down by 7, and Gillan punting under the post, knowing that Greg the Leg Zuerlein will be waiting to kick the Rams into a 2-score game, with time running out, the hammer had to make sure his last mistake wasn't repeated, and thankfully he was doing what he does best, smashing the football long and high. Setting up, Gillan pounded the football 51 yards to the Rams' 47, just keeping it out of field goal range for Greg Zuerlein, who was struggling with kicks over 45 yards in the grassy winds of Cleveland Browns Stadium. This was the last punt of the game for Gillan, A turnover would happen 3 plays later as the Rams tried to push into field goal range, but unfortunately the offense just wasn't clicking and they couldn't move the sticks. These are the stats from Gillan in that game. He had some amazing punts with 2 50-plus yard punts, 3 punts inside the 20, and all of this in brutal wins. Gillan had great control, and even on his 5th punt that went really bad, he showed so much character to bounce back with a 51-yarder when his team needed him the most. Playing the Ravens in week 4, Jamie Gillan only had 3 punts, keeping a 40-yard average. His weakest punting performance of the month, Jamie Gillan already had the award locked up with his 3 previous performances. This was the month of the hammer, and was one of the greatest rookie punting debut months on record. It was amazing to see a player who grew up in Scotland playing rugby to becoming an NFL star punter. He had a brilliant preseason, won the starting job, and followed that form into the start of the season. With an epic month of punting, showing power placement and consistency, winning 2 awards and putting his name on the map. In that month, Jamie Gillan had 11 punts inside the 20, only 19 return yards, 10 fair catches, and a 55-yard punt. All of this production off of only 20 punts. But here's the funny thing, Jamie Gillan won the Special Teams Player of the Month for the first 4 games of the season. But what if I was to tell you his best punting performance came in week 5 against the San Francisco 49ers, where Jamie Gillan's powerful left leg allowed him to put up jaw-dropping stats. Going into the game as the Special Teams Player of the Month, Jamie Gillan has improved in all aspects of the game. He was getting better at holding for field goals, he was more consistent week to week with his punting, and he was starting to look more comfortable in the position. So facing a team like the San Francisco 49ers was going to be a big test for the rookie, and one he passed with flying colours. The first punt is on the Browns 42, and Jamie Gillan doesn't hit that long a punt, only going 41 yards. But there is something about this punt that will go on to become a recurring issue for the 49ers in this game, and that is the hang time and ball movement. This first punt had 5+ seconds of hang time, giving his return team time to get in the face of the return man. The second thing is that because of the movement of the ball in the Hammers punts, the return man is having a hard time judging its trajectory, which is vital for a returner. Because of this and the forward momentum of the punt, Gillan can add a lot of extra yards to a punt with forward roll. The second punt is a 68-yard bomb with 4.85 seconds of hang time, and the recurring issue for the 49ers return man, not being able to judge the flight of the ball. This is all down to Gillan, who smashes the ball in a line drive at a low trajectory, and yet is still able to have a hang time above a 4.5. This punt flipped field position from the back of the end zone all the way to the 49ers 26.
His defensive line.
Now Gillan from just beyond his goal line as he skies this punt and drives James back to the 30-yard line. And James down the sideline cuts back.
Richie James would have 33 returns in the 2019 season, 4th highest in the NFL for a punt returner, and had 11 fair catches, so he was no stranger to judging the flight of a ball and adding yards after catch. In this game he let 5 balls hit the turf, with only 1 catch out of 7. He returned that catch, as you can see, for 32 yards. This just shows how important it was for Gillan to make catching the ball as hard as possible for him, because if he didn't, a lot more damage could have been done. Gillan's third punt was a 58-yard punt wasted. Gillan may have outkicked the coverage, but with a hang time of 4.8, I feel that the coverage unit was given enough time to get downfield. There was definitely a chance of holding from the Niners coverage unit, preventing the Browns gunners from getting downfield, but you won't always get that call. Unfortunately, it hurt Gillan's perfect game. This might be one of the best punts of the day, not the longest punt or the best hang time at 4.6, but this 51-yard punt showed that Gillan is more than just a big leg. He places this punt perfectly onto the 4-yard line with a backward spin to prevent the ball from rolling into the end zone, forcing the 49ers to start in their own end zone. A 45-yard punt that went out of bounds at the 10 is another good punt that pins the Niners back into horrible starting position. With his 6th punt kicking from the Browns' 21-yard line, Gillan hit a line drive, catching it really well. The ball hit the 39-yard line and rolled down to the 49ers' own 16. You can see the frustration on the 49ers return man Richie James. The launch angle of the ball and the way it moves in the air and its hang time has made every return a nightmare for him, and you can tell he's afraid to try and catch the ball because of this. Gillan's 7th punt was just a power punt born out of frustration. The Browns were down by 28 points, the game basically over, and this punt was just smashed down the field. Amazingly, it was a 71-yard punt that rolled back into the end zone. It's a low point to end on from what was one of the best punting performances of the 2019-20 season that will unfortunately be forgotten to time. Jamie Gillan has become a mainstay at the Browns, following up those great 5 weeks with a very consistent season, with always known they have a power leg on the bench to bail them out when needed. But as the Browns know, Jamie Gillan has so much more than just a powerful left leg. He has made a reputation for himself in the preseason as a punter who could tackle, and tackle hard. He has the ability to be a kickoff man and, if necessary, a field goal kicker. The Browns found a gem in Jamie Gillan, and even though he would have a disappointing 2020-21 season where he got COVID just before the season started, in the playoffs when the team needed him the most, he showed up big with some important kicks. Thank you for watching.